Hello and welcome on the TheGhostOfSabotage and GM crops. Bad influence, some say. I say the real future. And GM crops are influenced by the reality that by 2050 the world will likely have another 2 billion mouths to feed and face an estimated 70% increase to global food demand. We need another green revolution to increase agriculture productivity, especially in Africa, and we should pursue a variety of approaches to meet that challenge. Undoubtedly, these approaches should include better farming training and improved fertilization and irrigation, especially given that less than 4% of sub-Saharan African farmland is currently irrigated, versus 40% of Asia. A recent report a few months ago from the Commission on Sustainable Agriculture and Climate Change processes a thoughtful, multi-pronged strategy to increase food production, including enhancing population resilience to climate change, which is kind of bullshit, climate change and all. You know my view on climate change, you all should know. Anyway, and raising investment in sustainable farming. Solutions should also include waste reduction. Western consumers throw away roughly a third of food that is produced, and in sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia and Southeast Asia, around a third of food produced ends up rotten due to inadequate transportation and storage. However, we would be remiss if we do not include GM crops to the toolkit. What's my drink? So kind of getting in the way. Let me get a thing for that. Fearing adverse health consequences, critics refer to GM crops as Frankenfood. It's the way of the future, I see. But years of studies have not diminished any harmful effects down to childhood crop. And a 2010 report from the European Commission, a body not known to be friendly to GM agriculture, summarizes a decade of large-scale government-funded studies, including the biotechnology and particular GMOs, and are not more risky than e.g. conventional plant breeding technology. Of course, no studies have proven that GM agriculture is not harmful, which is the measure of proof that some opponents of GM require. But with hundreds of millions of people experiencing food insecurity in the world today, and famine lingering in East Africa and brewing in the West Sahel, it's not my bar. Quoting some Jogdish Bhagwata Bagawati. I don't know. I would take the unproven fears of Frankenstein or over the inevitable of the Grim Reaper that promises the near certainty of continued poverty and food crisis in poor countries. Damn bloody hell. Emerging research also casts doubt on organic farming to meet the world's food needs in a sustainable way. A recent Natural article suggests that organic farming under certain conditions, when conventional and organic systems are most comparable, currently produced yields up to a third lower than conventional and normal farming. Of course, like most engineering technologies, GM agriculture does have risks and attempts to somewhat. Okay. GM point 1. GM technology is expensive and farmers can face significantly financial hardship in implementing it, particularly in developing countries. As GM agriculture becomes more widespread in the developing world, it is imperative to figure out how to sell and distribute farming technology in ways that are conducive to poverty alleviation. This program is not dissimilar from the challenge of extending life-saving pharmaceuticals in a cost-effective way in developing world. In the developing world. Point number 2. Linked to the first issue, GM seed companies aggressively protect their intellectual property factory that increases costs for poor farmers and could hinder the kind of research and collaboration that would benefit the developing world and the environment. Point number 3. Some studies and experts question how effective GM agriculture really is at increasing crop yields. We need more data and research on this issue. We've already proven that wheat was simply a piece of grass, or this grass was about, the yield was about the head on the wheat originally was about that thick and about that big. Now it's freaking massive. Now it's pretty big. Yields a lot of shit. Therefore, technically, it's already worked. So we just need to step it up just a tiny bit. Anyway, point number 4. GM agriculture systems like Monsanto's Roundup Ready crops are designed to resist pesticides, e.g. the Roundup pesticide seed anyway, so that farmers can easily spray to kill weeds without harming their crops. However, in some places weeds have evolved to resist pesticides, creating costly and effectively difficult problems if farmers are to prevent pesticides resistance. They need to deficiently count of pesticides they use. Yet some GM methods actually encourage pesticide dependency. This needs to be avoided. At the center of criticism of GM crops are certain are concerns that about the role it could play in expanding industrializing farming. After all, the original Green Revolution was not especially green. It resulted in deforestation, ineffective water use. And that's my fucking phone. And reduced genetic diversity, often at the expense of small farmers. Okay. But it has resulted in remarkable productivity increase. Says, as we confront issues of food security in coming decades, GM crops will not be a silver bullet, but in some places it could be an important part of the solution. A solution the most, of course, including other farming systems. While the risk of GM agriculture are not small, neither is normal farming. There are still shit in normal farming that can be risky, like things like disease and such shit. Anyway, and while we must anticipate, mitigate, and continue to review these risks, and refusing to pursue GM crops at this point will be irresponsible. Too right. In a December Science editorial, Colostus, was it Joanna or something, called for African countries to form an international institute of biotechnology that would bring together entities like government agencies, farmer groups, research institutions, and private sector companies to make biotechnology a positive force for African agriculture, protecting the interests of and giving voice to the world's poor is essential to implementing GM crops successfully. Organizations like Professor Jonas' proposed collaboration could help lead the way forward. Another advantage of GM crops is space travel. It saves quite a lot of space for where food, so many months of food can go. Again, GM crops can be manipulated, so they grow in zero gravity or maybe little gravity, depending on where it's going to get grown, colonization, stuff like that. So yeah. So until next time. Laters.